Master horse racing with daily racing forms Formulator, now free for DRF Bets members. Sign up to get the best bonus in racing with a $250 deposit match, plus a $10 free bet and free Formulator past performances. Go to drf.com/bet to play like a pro today.
Hey everyone, David Aragona and Greg Milkowski are taking a look at the first graded stakes that they are going to run chronologically on this stacked Belmont Stakes Saturday card. Race 3 is the Grade 2 True North, this one going 6.5 furlongs for the older sprinters. And Craig, we've got some star power in this race. Not the biggest field though, only 6 runners, but we do have the 4 to 5 favorite Elite Power, who was last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, was an impressive winner of a race over in Saudi Arabia over the winter, and definitely coming into this race with a nice reputation. But we do have a couple of other speedy rivals who have run some nice speed figures in the number 5 Strobe and the number 1 Today's Flavor. So it's not like it's just some coronation for Elite Power. He does have to show up.
He does. It's not every day you get an Eclipse Award winner this early on the card, and I don't think this race is a walkover, as you'll see as we go through this and we give our picks. He's obviously good. He's done nothing wrong of late. He maybe ran his best race over in Saudi Arabia, but there are a couple others who I think could give him a run for his money.
And I think it's important to discuss the pace in this race, as it always is, but especially in a small field like this, because there's a limited amount of speed in here. And I think you see that in the Timeform US pace projector with the favors front runners designation. And the number 1 Today's Flavor, Craig, given the fact that he's drawn the rail and has had so much success getting to the front end in past races, you have to imagine the game plan for George Weaver and Manny Franco is going to be to get aggressive and try to wire this field. And I guess we'll see if he can back down the pace enough, because there are a couple of other runners in here who will be pressing him in the number 5 Strobe and the number 3 Anarchist, both horses that have shown speed in the past. But Today's Flavor, when he really gets sent, he's just a little quicker than the others early.
He is, and I think it's going to come down to just how much he gets pressed, because he is very, very fast. I don't think there's much doubt that he's going to make the lead, but it's just a matter of how much work he's going to have to do to secure it and to maintain it.
Yeah, you do see the number 4 Elite Power shown on the pace projector, perhaps not as far back as some might expect, and he's going to have to stay within range of some of these leaders because those horses with speed do have quality. And speaking of this pace projector, let's start to go through this field in the order that they're shown on the pace projector, beginning with that likely early leader, the number 1 Today's Flavor. And we'll take a look at his last race at Aqueduct when he was a winner of the Affirmed Success Stakes against New York bred. So he's stepping up in class here to run against open graded stakes foes, but he ran yet another fast race here, Craig, and that's kind of been the story in his last 3 starts. Just keeps throwing down these impressive Timeform US speed figures, and ran deceptively well too back in that Carter. Even though he finished off the board, he was the one that forced that pace to collapse, setting some quick fractions.
Yeah, the Carter was actually a race we talked about it on our Timeform US Pacecast that actually broke our algorithm. It was so quick early. It was one I had to break out for a fast pace on dirt. I think it may have been the only time I've ever done that. You can see just how fast those fractions were, all in red for a sprint race. It was pretty crazy. And for him to hold on and only be beaten a length and 3/4 was pretty impressive. Got a bit of a breather last time. And as you look at his races, when he's allowed to go slow, he can do it. He's just pretty headstrong and wants the front. So if he gets challenged, he might go a little too quick. But when he isn't, he's perfectly capable of backing it down a little and saving something for the finish.
Horse who figures to be in closest attendance to that likely leader in the early stages is the number 5 Strobe. And let's take a look at his last race when he stepped up against Stakes Company for the first time in the Count Fleet at Oaklawn. And Craig, I thought he ran well in this race, just caught a horse that's in excellent form right now in the winner Skelly, who basically ran this field off their feet. And it kind of messed with Strobe a little bit because he's a horse that had showed a lot of early speed in his prior starts, but just couldn't keep up with Skelly in the early stages. And it felt like Florent Drew wasn't even really trying to do so, keeping this horse outside the entire way. Finished up decently to be second that day, had been a visually impressive winner in some allowance races prior to that. I think we're still finding out how good this horse can ultimately be, but he's a horse that's going to be a much shorter price than Today's Flavor and really hasn't earned speed figures that are any faster.
No, he's shown some talent all along. He's had a big reputation. He's been getting bet off the board almost every time he runs. I thought he ran very well last time, showed a little bit of a different tactic, not being able to keep up with Skelly early, which is no knock on him because really nobody's been able to keep up with Skelly early. He certainly has a big chance in here. I'm just not sure that I would want to take 2-1 on him.
The number 3 is Anarchist, and he's tried many different circuits and surfaces in his most recent starts. We'll take a look at him competing on synthetic last time at Woodbine in the Jacques Cartier. This was going 6 furlongs, a grade 3 event up at Woodbine. And this horse runs well, stalks the pace, takes over, beats what was probably a weaker field than the one he's facing here. But I just admire this horse's versatility, Craig. He's been proficient on turf, dirt, synth. So moving back to the dirt here doesn't feel like it's going to be a major issue. He's just going to have to get faster if he's going to take down the favorites.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's another horse that shows up usually, runs his race most of the time. He just doesn't really have the speed figures to stack up with some of the better horses in here. And he also has a style where he likes to be up pretty close to the lead. And I'm not sure he's ever seen anything quite as quick as today's Flavor.
The number 2, Synthesis, will probably be trying to come from somewhere in mid-pack in this small field. And we'll take a look at his last race when he did work out a pretty good stalking trip en route to victory in this optional claimer at Belmont Park. And this was a performance that sort of came out of nowhere for this horse, Craig. It looked like his form had been heading in the wrong direction for David Jacobson, dismissed at 10-1 in this race, partially due to the presence of Following C, who was bet down to 1-5 favoritism and just did not show up off the layoff. And I think once Following C failed to run his race, this became a much easier spot. It was kind of ripe for the taking for any horse, and Synthesis was there to fill in the void. This is just a big step up in class for him, and I think he'd even have to get faster on that last race to beat this field.
Yeah, that's a problem. If you want to bet him here, you have to think he's going to take another big jump forward. And to me, that's just something that seems like a very tough ask at the age of 7.
A horse that's shown behind Synthesis on the pace projector is the number 4, Elite Power, who likely will be trying to come from the back of the pack in this True North, but he's used that running style to great effect in recent starts, including in this Riyadh Dirt Sprint that we're going to take a look at here on that Saudi Cup undercard. And Craig, there is an argument that this was the best race by quite some ways that Elite Power has ever run, because he's defeating a pretty good horse here in Gunite in resounding fashion, running off by over 3 lengths. And we saw Gunite come back recently at Churchill Downs with a very impressive performance and speed figure, so validating the form of this race. And Elite Power, well, he wasn't earning the fastest speed figures at the end of last season. He was just consistently improving from race to race, and feels like one that, if he can continue that trajectory now as a 5-year-old, could have a big year.
Yeah, it won kind of a weak Breeders' Cup last year, particularly when you look at the speed figure. Jackie's Warrior, the horse who was 3rd, was on his way to retirement. CZ Rocket is a solid horse, but been around forever. But point being, it wasn't the strongest Breeders' Cup, but that race in Saudi Arabia was very strong. He ran by Gunite almost like he was standing still in that last furlong, just pulling away from him with every stride. Got a big 125 time form rating, which continued his ascent speed figure wise. The one little hitch was in the Vosburg, and that was a race where there was just no pace at all. I think that held the speed figure down a little bit. So he's clearly the horse to beat. I do think he has a little issue with the pace. He may have to show a little more early speed than what we've seen from him in some of his others, but obviously the horse to beat here.
And I should point out, he did adapt to a slow pace in the Vosburg 3-back when he was able to sit right on top of the lead and then still produce that finishing kick. So this horse does have some versatility and just feels like a deserving favorite in this True North. And then, Craig, we've got the turnback of all turnbacks, the number 6 Fearless, who a surprising entrant in this race. And if you do like a turnback, definitely getting one with this horse, going from 14 furlongs to 12 furlongs, and now cutting back to 6.5 coming off the layoff. Just kind of feels like Todd Pledger and the connections are looking to get a race into this horse before they likely stretch him out in the future.
Yeah, this was quite the perplexing entry. I know we talked about Fearless a lot last year when he was winning those marathons. He's a horse who it doesn't even seem like he gets started running until after 6 furlongs. So I'm not sure what he's doing in here other than being in the race for exercise, as you say.
Let's throw up our picks for this Grade 2 True North. And Craig, you're going to go with the pace projector, the number 1, Today's Flavor. You know what the game plan is going to be with this horse breaking from the inside, just going to flash his speed and try to wire this field on the front end.
Yeah, as the guy that made the pace projector, this is one of those cases I'm going to go with it. I think Today's Flavor offers some value, particularly since I saw Strobe come from a little bit off the pace last time. I think maybe they'll be content with those tactics and just kind of follow each other around the track, even though I fully acknowledge your pick, Elite Power, is clearly the horse to beat.
Yeah, I'm going to chalk out here, taking Elite Power on top. There are plenty of interesting races on this Saturday card at Belmont Park, including among the stakes later on, but I was going to chalk it out with these first two. And Elite Power just is a horse I've become a fan of. Feels like he's really been progressing over the course of his last 3 starts. And if he's able to continue that progression in this True North, he's going to be really tough for this field to beat, but he will have to overcome a potentially unfavorable pace situation that could favor Craig's pick, Today's Flavor. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.